Good evening, Tony Dottino. I am the founder of the USA Memory Championship, and not sure what has happened with Facebook, but I'm one of these folks that follow a routine, and as long as that routine is consistent, Facebook was trying to make something easier with this Facebook Live broadcast, and somehow I have found it to be extraordinarily difficult, challenging, and impossible. So it's just taken me the last 45 minutes to finally navigate through to see what I've got and how I can get onto my Live with Tony, which I like to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the 5 o'clock hour. But in any case, what I wanted to share, I had some really wonderful news over the weekend, and it really proves the practicality when people understand the principles of the elements of brain health and how you keep people engaged and what can happen if you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the experience, especially with those that you care about and your loved ones and your family that may go into a skilled nursing facility or may go into a hospital during these times of craziness. What may happen and how they may get diagnosed or misdiagnosed. So the happy of this story is we've had a dear friend who has gone from assisted living to a hospital to skilled nursing, and you may have heard me talk about her over a number of Live with Tony broadcasts. But I got some great news over this past weekend, and that was we were able to get the psychologist of her skilled nursing facility to re-administer a BIMS test. And a BIMS test is similar to what they do now with seniors or with people they think may have mild cognitive impairment to test whether or not their faculties are working. And our dear friend had gotten it upon the admission to the skilled nursing, and she didn't pass it, and she flunked it, basically. And I've been arguing with the psychologist and with the location for months to say, first, she was isolated during COVID. She was in assisted living, locked down. The only people she got to see is somebody to drop the tray off in her room every day, and somebody that would come in and care for her with her meds once a day. She lost all social interaction. And what we know, and we're seeing this over and over again, I can't believe this in terms of our kids and schools, and in respect to being safe from COVID and doing the things with masking and washing and all these things that we're learning that can help protect us, we also need to figure out how to maintain some level of social interaction. So here was our dear friend in assisted living, and she lost all social interaction. She didn't have people to talk to. Nobody that came in and stimulated her brain with conversation. She went from skilled nursing to, she went from assisted living to skilled nursing. Opened up again. We started a program, and I say we, the family, her family as well as my team of people that would go in and visit, started to bring her back into living again. First with social interaction, then we did some crosswords, then we went back. Was because she hadn't watched that in the news, realized there was an election but didn't know who won the election. This is how bad it was for her being restricted. Didn't know the day of the week was what it was. She wasn't reading newspapers anymore. She lost all outside contact. So imagine putting yourself in a dome and being excluded from any news media or any updates as to what's going on in the world about you or in your community. How would you feel? How would you be in that environment? So anyway, we started by going back and talking with her, bringing back things of prior experiences with her, bringing back memories, different items of some of her books and some of her magazine, People magazine, getting her People magazine back to her again, getting people to call her on the telephone, we started to build a social interaction. And as that began to occur, you could see she became more lively, more enthusiastic for conversation and knowing who was calling her and what they were talking about. And that began to access some of her coded memories. Next thing I did is we started to bring some crossword puzzles to her, some picture games, and some different mental activities that would cause her to have to reflect and think a little bit and draw on her life experiences. We got back to television watching. Who thinks watching TV is a big deal? Well, she had some of her favorite TV programs when she went to skilled nursing. No one ever bothered to show her how to use the TV clicker. Hard to believe. Certainly, I'd be screaming and yelling at somebody. But how did we use the TV clicker so she could go back and watching the news and go watch her? She loves Law and Order, and there are a couple of other shows that she loved to watch that she hadn't been watching anymore. So now we're back into watching some of the TV programs in which she could then reflect on, I remember that episode, or I remember this was the third time I've seen this episode. So we started to bring different things. Next thing, what did we do? They have daily 2 activities, one in the morning, one in the afternoon at the facility. We insisted, though, she couldn't get out of bed on her own, that she get out of bed, put into a wheelchair, and go and just sit and watch the bingo or the word games or the movies they played. We insisted that she go out at least twice a day and go and just be in the community of the skilled nursing facility. And then last but not least, when all of the restrictions were lifted, we insisted that we took turns with 3 people to get her in a wheelchair by lunch, have her eat lunch out in the community of the facility, and then take her outside for an hour. And I always remember, we go outside. I'd sit when it was my turn and go over and take her outside. They're building apartments across the parking lot, right? And we talk about the apartments and how many windows there were and what color jackets the workers had. And this guy had a green one on, this one had an orange one, but there were more greens than orange, so maybe he's the supervisor. So we started playing with the apartments so that even when she went back up into her room, when the visits were done, she asked to be looking out at the window so she could see what was going on with the apartments that they were building. One day we were sitting outside and the lawn guys were there and they were picking up weeds, and she was sitting there looking at, pointing out what weeds they still had to cover that were underneath some of the flowers and some of the bushes. And so she was engaged in helping watch them at least pull weeds out of the floral gardens and things. The point of the matter is we got her into a series of different activities that re-engaged her mental capacities in a way that for her was enjoyable and pleasant. Now, what does this all have to do with anything? Well, in our elements of brain health that we are now putting together and will be coming out shortly as another course, these elements of social interaction, mental stimulation, how do you reduce somebody's stress levels? What do you do in terms of helping them with their sleep? All of these elements needed to come back into play. And as those elements have come back into play in her life, I got the greatest phone call over the weekend. They redid her BIMS test, and she passed with 100%. Now, why was that significant? Because if you flunk a BIMS test, they look at you like you're cognitively impaired and you don't know what's going on. So therefore, somebody's got to make decisions for you. Passing the BIMS test basically now said she knows what's going on. She's aware of the elements, the questions you're asking, the care that she's being given. She can answer those questions and she can put her signature on appropriate papers because she comprehends what's going on and therefore has her independence to make her own decisions, which for her was just fantastic. And as she has said, just going outside for an hour or two every day has made a world of difference. Sitting and watching people. I'm not an artist, as she said to me on my last visit. I don't paint and I don't draw, but just watching people with the colors and what they were painting and what their pictures look like it was fantastic. sitting down watching a movie with maybe 12, 14 other resident members, and the host would serve popcorn. So it was back out and being engaged in different activities that helped bring her back to a state of where it has nothing to do with cognitive impairment or fitness. It has to do with, do people understand what the elements are that we need to engage in to maintain strong mental fitness throughout our life? And here was a woman that if I hadn't come along, I hate to be pat myself on the back, if I hadn't come along and I haven't done the research I've done for now over 20 years, this woman would have been pushed off to the side and meant to just drift off into dementia, Alzheimer's, mental impairment of some sort. And all I argued with the staff and with the psychologist, which is really disappointing that I had to argue these points, is if we can bring her back to social interaction, getting her mental challenges back, engaging her in her fun activities, bringing back some of the elements of getting her out of bed even, and you want to call that exercise, getting out of bed and not just laying there and watching TV, bringing back the elements, what her nutritional plan and diet were, how she was handling things that were upsetting to her and who she could reach out and talk to, all came back together again and got me the best phone call I could have gotten on her behalf, which was she passed. They finally redid the test and she passed with flying colors. No magic to this. They said no magic pills. We didn't need to do brain surgery. We needed to just understand what are the things that go on in our lives every day that impact our mental fitness, and what can we do to take control of those things so that we can engage in activities every day that help us maintain good, strong, healthy brains. I'll leave the evening with that story, and I hope when I get back on Wednesday, I don't have to go 45 minutes to figure out how to get back into Facebook, but I will give it a go, and if all goes well, somehow, some way,